Let's be honest for a second. How many times in your life have you caught yourself saying something like, "I'm just not a math person," or "I don't have a creative bone in my body," or "My memory is just terrible, it runs in the family"? We love to do this. We love to put permanent labels on ourselves. We treat the human brain like it's a piece of hardware that was soldered together at a factory in a specific configuration. Maybe you got a 115 on an IQ test back in high school, and you've spent the last 10 years thinking, well, that's the hand I was dealt, time to play it. But here's the multi-million-dollar question. What if that entire premise is scientifically illiterate? What if your brain isn't hardware at all? For the last 30 years, neuroscientists have been uncovering a truth that absolutely shatters the old way of thinking about human potential. It's called neuroplasticity. Now, I know that sounds like a buzzword that gets thrown around by every self-help guru selling a course, but stick with me. Neuroplasticity is simply the discovery that your brain is physically changing right now, in this moment, based on what you are doing, thinking, and feeling. The genius isn't the guy who was born with a faster microprocessor. The genius is the person who, either accidentally or intentionally, learned how to upgrade their own operating system. Today, we are breaking down the 6 specific habits that actually change the physical structure of your brain. These are the habits that separate the people who mentally stagnate at age 25 from the people who keep getting sharper at age 65, 75, and beyond.
Habit number 1 is something Cal Newport calls deep work, but the reason it works has a cool name: myelination. To understand this, imagine your neurons as electrical wires. When you learn something new, the signal is weak and leaks out, resulting in hesitation and mistakes. But here's the magic. When you repeat that task with intense concentration, your brain wraps that wire in a fatty substance called myelin. It's like putting rubber insulation on a bare copper wire. The science is fascinating. The more myelin around the neural pathway, the faster and more accurate the signal becomes, up to 100 times faster. This isn't a metaphor. This is the literal, physical mechanism of mastery. This is how experts perform complex skills effortlessly. They have physically altered their brains through focused repetition. The practical habit is to ruthlessly stop shallow work. Stop checking email every 6 minutes while trying to learn a language. If you're constantly task switching, your brain isn't myelinating the right circuits. Instead of building a superhighway for your new skill, you're actually insulating the pathways of distraction. You're literally getting good at being distracted. So here's the prescription. Block out just 90 minutes a day of uninterrupted, focused work on something challenging. No phone, no internet, no inputs, just you and the struggle. It sounds simple, but in an age of constant notifications, it's actually quite radical. And here's the encouraging part. You don't need to do this all day. Research shows that even 90 minutes of deep work can move the needle significantly. That focused stretch is when your brain does its heaviest lifting. That feeling of cognitive strain, that sensation of your brain heating up as you fight to grasp a difficult concept, that's not frustration. That's the sound of your brain physically changing. That is the sensation of myelin being laid down, circuit by circuit, until one day what was impossible becomes effortless.
Habit number 2 is uncomfortable for most adults: novelty seeking. As we age, we optimize our environment for comfort and efficiency. We want to autopilot through our day. The problem is, the brain is a pattern recognition machine. When it encounters a familiar pattern, it goes into power-saving mode. If you want to keep your brain plastic and growing, you have to force it out of power-saving mode. You have to introduce novelty. This doesn't mean you have to go skydiving every weekend. It means taking a different route to work. It means trying to brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. It means listening to a genre of music you hate just to analyze why you hate it. Novelty triggers the release of dopamine and norepinephrine, which put the brain in a state of high potential learning. You are telling your brain, hey, this is new. We can't autopilot. We need to build some new maps. Do one novel thing every single day.
Habit number 3 is about memory, but not for the reason you think. I'm not teaching you this so you can memorize pi to 1,000 digits at parties, although that's a cool party trick. I'm teaching you this because memory is the scaffolding of intelligence. If you can't retain information, you can't connect ideas. You can't have insights. You're just drinking from a leaking cup. One of the most powerful habits you can build is using the major system, or a memory palace. This is a technique where you convert numbers into consonant sounds and then into words and place them in a familiar location. Why does this work? Because the human brain did not evolve to remember abstract data like numbers. It evolved to remember locations and vivid images. When you practice this, you are forging new neural pathways in the hippocampus, the brain's memory center. Spend 5 minutes a day trying to memorize something useless, a grocery list, a phone number, the kings and queens of England. The goal isn't the memory itself. The goal is the workout. You are doing bicep curls for your hippocampus.
Habit number 4 is physical, and it might be the hardest one on the list. It's the deliberate exposure to discomfort, specifically cold. Now, there's a lot of hype about Wim Hof and ice baths right now, but let's look at the specific brain chemistry. When you immerse yourself in cold water, you trigger a massive release of norepinephrine and dopamine. Norepinephrine is the brain's super-focus molecule. It's the same chemical released when you're in danger or intensely focused. But more importantly, you are training what Dr. Andrew Huberman calls your anterior mid-cingulate cortex. This is the area of the brain associated with will to live and grit. It is the only area of the brain that lights up when you do something you don't want to do. Every time you override the impulse to be comfortable by taking a cold shower, by doing that last rep in the gym, by waking up early, you are literally growing the size and density of the neurons in your anterior mid-cingulate cortex. You are building the physical hardware of discipline. Habit number 5 comes from the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman. He had a saying, "If you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself." Most of us suffer from what psychologists call the curse of knowledge. We think we understand an idea because we recognize the jargon, but if someone asks us to explain it simply, we freeze. The habit here is to constantly practice explanation. When you learn something new, take a blank piece of paper and try to write down the explanation in plain English, as if you were teaching a child. What happens in your brain during this process is called pruning. You are forcing your brain to delete the irrelevant details and strengthen the core concept. You aren't just memorizing, you are building a robust mental model. It is the difference between knowing the name of something and knowing something. The final habit is the one that ties everything together, mindfulness. But I want to explain it in a way you might not have heard before. Your brain has a default mode network, or DMN. It's the part of your brain that activates when you're not focused on anything in particular. It's the voice in your head that ruminates on the past and worries about the future. It's the source of your stress and your negative self-talk, the voice that says, "I'm not a math person." An overactive DMN is correlated with depression and anxiety. It's also the enemy of neuroplasticity because it keeps you trapped in old, unhelpful thought patterns. Meditation isn't about emptying your mind. It's about practicing the skill of disengaging from the default mode network. When you focus on your breath and your mind wanders and you bring it back, that act of bringing it back is like doing a pull-up for your attention. Over time, this weakens the connections in the DMN and strengthens the connections in the areas of the brain responsible for focus and present moment awareness. You are literally severing the neural pathways that lead to rumination.
So let's go back to the beginning. You are not a piece of hardware.
You are not stuck with the brain you had at 25. The 6 habits are deep work to build myelin, novelty to wake the brain up, memorization to work out the hippocampus, discomfort to build grit in the cortex, explanation to prune away the noise, and mindfulness to quiet the negative default mode. You don't have to do all 6 at once. Pick one. Start today. Prove to yourself that the old labels were wrong. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. And let me know in the comments, which of these habits are you going to try first? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.